Hey beauties, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we are doing a spring glam transformation. Now, I created today's eye look for you guys because I wanted to do something a little bit different from what I've been doing. If you guys haven't seen my previous upload, which is my everyday kind of glam look, you guys can definitely check that out. It will be in the description box down below. But make sure you watch this video because this look right here, I am really impressed with and I do love it, and I feel like you guys will love it as well. So grab your makeup brushes or a snack, whichever is your preference, and I'm gonna zoom you guys in and we are going to get started on this here makeup look, which I love, by the way. So today I am taking it back and I'm starting with my eyes instead of my base makeup. So I am going to be using the Jaclyn Hill palette, both the second version and the original palette today for the eye look. And I'm going to start with Perfectionist, which is this shade right here. And I'm just going to use that as a light transition shade. So I'm just dipping my brush into the pan once and just kind of brushing this on as a light transition. Now this shadow does show up on my eyelid, which is nice, but again, it's not too intense in color and it's very buildable if you did want to build it up. So I think it makes for a perfect transitional shade. Now that we kind of have that shade laid out, I am now going to go into G Money over here, which is like a warm tone brown in my opinion, and I'm gonna lightly put this in my crease as well. So I'm being very light-handed because I've already used this palette before, obviously, and I know that these shadows can be very pigmented, so just be very light-handed with it if you are following along, and just lightly dust that in the crease as well. This is just helping to darken up that transition shade and just get everything nice and ready for the remainder of the shadows that we will put on our lid. These two shadows together just create like this nice warm tone vibe. And if you just wanted to put these two shadows on your lid all together, I think it would be really pretty because they are nice shades and they do blend and mix well together. I really like the definition that it creates in the crease. Both of these shades, they're lovely. So now I'm gonna grab next, which is this more like burgundy shadow over here, which is this one right here. And I'm just going to tap my brush in this. And this color, I am going to focus on my outer corner, but I'm also going to kind of blend it to the center, if that makes sense. Maybe you guys will understand what I'm saying better by watching, but I'm just going to tap it on at first, and then I'm going to blend it halfway. So I'm doing a lot of tapping and blending, because it's helping me to keep the shadow light-handed and not too harsh and intense, and get it and build it up where I want it. Now that I have that shadow laid down, I'm gonna grab a clean blending brush, preferably a fluffy and clean one that's more fluffy like this. This is the JH30, and I'm just gonna take this just to help clean up the outer edges of my eyeshadow because I want it to look nice and blended and not choppy, obviously. So we're just gonna blend this. If you needed to, you could go back into Perfectionist, which is that transitional shade that we use, just to help lighten the outer perimeter if that's what you choose to do as well. Now for the outer V area, I do want to layer that with two different browns. So the first brown I'm going to grab is this one right here in the palette. It's going to take a very small amount of that as well. And I'm going to put this on my outer V area, like really pinch it right in here in this little corner. So I'm just tapping it lightly. And then directly on top, I'm going to tap my brush into the darker one, which is this one right here. And I'm going to tap on top of that as well. And then I'll go in with a smaller defined brush. For me, that will be the Morphe M50, and I'm just going to blend this just to create a little bit of definition out here. Then once more, I'm going to go back in with that big fluffy blending brush and just blend all of this out. So at this point, you just touch up where you feel like you need touching up at. For me, it's the browns, so I'm just going to add just a little bit more, but nothing too crazy. And then I'm going to move on to my lid shade. So for the sake of not grabbing another palette, I'm just going to use one of the shimmers in here. And I think I'm going to use the shade Get Ready With Me, which is more of like a golden bronze kind of shade, which is typically what I go for. I'm just not really crazy about any kind of like other like shimmery shade. I do like pinks sometimes, or like champagnes, but most of the time I go gold because I feel like that's what looks the best against my skin and I really like it. So I'm just packing this shadow on right here on the inner part of my lid. If you wanted to, you could cut your crease, make it more defined, but I'm more of like a just slap on the shimmer type of girl. I don't really prefer a cut crease anymore. I mean, I don't really do it too often anyways. So this is just what I'm gonna do. And I'm not wetting my brush. I'm just strictly taking it from the palette and placing it on my eyelid. I think it looks really nice. Now when I am putting the shimmer on, I do like to make sure that I'm going a little bit above the crease. Not too much, but just a little bit to kind of lift the eyes and open them a little bit more. Especially if you have hooded eyelids, I definitely suggest going above your crease just to make your eyeshadow pop a bit more. So now that we have that, we just want to make sure everything's nice and blended. So I'm going to use a little bit of the browns and just make sure this is blended out. Because we don't want to be able to tell where the shimmer and the matte shadow kind of meet, if that makes sense. You guys get me. Now, if you wanted to, you definitely could do some winged liner. I'm not a winged liner type of person. I don't do it too often, and I definitely don't feel like doing it today. So I'm going to skip out on that, but if you wanted to add a little bit of winged liner, you could definitely do that. I mean, it's your choice, up to you, your preference. But I think I'm going to stop with the eyes for now, and then of course we'll work on the bottom lash line a little bit later once we get our base makeup on. So I'm going to start with priming the skin. I'm going to go in using my favorite lately, which is the Cover FX. This is their water cloud primer. It has pollution and blue light defense. So I'm going to use this. I've just been enjoying it a lot lately. I don't really know as far as like the blue light defense and pollution and stuff, but I think my skin really agrees with this primer. And honestly, for the most part, I've just been using this. Not 2 primers, not 3, not setting it with powder, just this. So I'm going to continue to use this because, like I said, it's what my skin has been agreeing with and I've been loving it. So now I do have a little bit of fallout from the shimmer shade, so I'm just going to take a little bit of my cellar water and I'm just going to clean up underneath my eyes. I probably should have done this before I primed, but it's okay. So I'm just going to clean that up really quickly, which is a good thing about doing our eyes first, is that you can clean up underneath your eyes and stuff and don't have to necessarily worry about the fallout that is happening with your shadows if you do have any. So I'm going to let that kind of dry a little bit, apply a little bit more primer in that area, and then we can apply the foundation. I don't necessarily see the need for a like extreme full coverage foundation, as you guys should know if you've seen my previous videos that I've been using the Huda Beauty foundation kind of like all the time lately. So I'm gonna switch it up and I'm gonna actually use the Maybelline Superstay full coverage foundation. Now, although this is full coverage, I think it's a high medium coverage buildable foundation, so I have a little bit more wiggle room when it comes to this, and plus I kind of want to use it before I tan because it's definitely not going to match me then. So now before I blend it in, I am going to take a little bit of the Smashbox Love Ritual primer water and just spray my face. Primer water is essential for me in the spring and summer, so gotta make sure I sprayed that. I know I said I only use 1 primer, but technically it's 2 because that is a primer, but are we really counting that? But it is a must for me. So spray that and then use my sponge just to blend all of this in. And like I said, it's like a medium buildable kind of coverage, so it's not as intense as the Huda Beauty foundation. And if you noticed, I didn't put any foundation on my forehead. because I'm just taking what's ever left from my sponge and just putting it on my forehead because I do not need that much coverage these days up here, because before I definitely needed it, but now not so much. So I try to use little product up there and just try to concentrate majority of my product down here on the lower half of my face. And the shade that I am using for this is 312 Golden Dore, just in case anybody wants to know, because I know you guys be wanting the scoop and wanting to know the shades and stuff, which I agree. So 312. All right, so we are nice and blended. Now for concealer, I'm gonna go ahead and use the CoverGirl True Blend Concealer. This is in the shade Golden Natural, and I'm gonna try to be light-handed with this because I don't want like too heavy of a coverage, if that makes sense. And this is significantly lighter. I'll put a little bit down, and then if I feel like I need more, then I'll just add more, but start with a little bit and then kind of build up. So again, just gonna take my sponge and blend it out. Another thing I'm going to skip over today is cream contour, so I'm just going to go ahead and set my concealer with the Huda Beauty Banana Bread Powder. I really do love this. I feel like it helps the longevity of your makeup, and it just sets everything nicely for me. So just going to press this into my skin as I normally would. And I just really have not been into baking for quite some time. So I try to press as much as I can into the skin. And then I will take just like a fluffy brush just to kind of dust off the remainder product. Now normally I would set my entire face, but because it is getting warmer outside, I kind of don't do that anymore. Not only because it's getting warmer, but also because my skin has been dry. So just the T-zone, because I am oily as well, but just kind of like in that area. Now before I go in with my spray that I like to spray on my face, kind of like my setting spray, I do spray my face down quite often in my routine of doing makeup. You guys don't see it every single time, but I do try to mention it or put it in the video, if that makes sense. But anyways, I'm gonna use this right here. This is the MAC Give Me Sun bronzer, and I'm just gonna use a little bit of this around the perimeter of my face, because even though we didn't cream contour, we're still gonna bronze, obviously, because it's gonna give us a little bit of color back into our skin and make us look more human, I guess. You know, because nobody is just one color, but it adds a nice warmth to my skin, and I do like that. So this is like a really good go-to bronzer for spring and summer. Honestly, I could use it year round. And I have like stopped trying to perfectly contour my nose. So I just drag the bronzer that I use down the sides of my nose and across the tip. I stopped trying to be like so precise, I guess. I just throw it on there. Now I'm gonna set down all the powders, and I'm gonna use this. This is the ColourPop Pretty Fresh Hyaluronic Acid Setting Mist. So I'm just gonna spray a generous amount of this because I want all these powders that we put on our face to kind of like melt. And this mist is just like so fine. It's like, it feels like air, just kind of like the wind blowing past you. It's so fine. So spray that down and let this dry. Then we can move on. So before we finish off the rest of the face, I do want to come back to the lower lash line so we can just finish that out. And what I'm going to do is take this second to darkest brown shade that we used, which is this one right here, and I'm going to push it up against my lower lash line with this defined brush. This is the JH43. And then I'm going to take a little bit of Perfectionist, which was in the original palette, and just blend and smoke that out. And I think that's all I'm going to do for the lower lash line. Now I want to take a little bit of I'm In It and a little bit of Certified, both together. And I'm going to place those shadows in my inner corner as well as like my brow bone, just to kind of highlight the brow bone and give a little inner corner pop. So now that all of that is done, I'm just gonna go ahead and pop on my lashes off camera really quickly and coat my brows with a little bit of this. This is the CoverGirl Easy Breezy Brow, kind of like mascara. It is clear. They do have tinted ones if you prefer like color, but I'm just gonna go ahead and use the clear one because I can use as much as I want, however I want, without it getting messy, if you know what I mean. So let me do that. I'll pop those on and then we'll be back to finish off today's look. So now that my lashes are on, bottom lashes are done, mascara's on, all that is done. So now we are gonna hop into blush. I'm gonna use the Natasha Denona Blush Trio. I've been loving this because it's neutral and I really love me a neutral everyday kind of blush, and this is what I prefer, kind of like a brown nudie kind of color. So I just put a little bit of this on. I do use both shades. So the darker one kind of makes for like that natural flush of blush, but the shimmery one next to it kind of gives like a nice glow to the skin on top of using highlight, or you can just use that instead of using highlighter. So that's what I like to do. I do use highlight, but I like to dip into there and just top it off. So it kind of gives it like a nice glow. It's very natural looking and I love it. Then for highlighter, nothing too intense. I'm gonna go ahead and use the Sephora blush palette, but I'm using that gold shade that I've always been using just for a nice natural kind of highlight. So it's this one right here. I'm gonna run a small amount on my cheeks, but majority of this is gonna be focused on the center of my face because I don't really like too much highlight on my cheekbones anymore. Just a small bit. Then like I said, focusing majority here in my T-zone. So I'm going to start off with this brush and then I'll use a tinier brush just to get a little bit more defined. But to initially apply, just use the same brush. So I'm going to set my face once more with this spray. So while I let that dry, I'm just going to kind of contemplate for a second to figure out whether or not I want to put like an actual lip color on, or do I want to just wear like a balm or a gloss. Yesterday I did my makeup and I was kind of regretting not putting on a lip color. So I might do one, but I'm unsure. And because I'm unsure, I don't want to take up time. So I'll think about it a little bit while I let this dry. We'll close out the video. And if I have a lip color on, of course I will share it with you guys. But I love this look. It's really pretty. Like I said, golds and like neutral tones, oranges and browns. I just feel like they look the best against my skin tone. I don't play too much in color, especially now. So I hope you guys can appreciate the look, even though it's not like super colorful or anything. To me, it's still spring and I like it. All right, you guys, so this brings us to the end of today's video. I did put a lip color on and I made up a little bit of a concoction. I first applied the Kylie lipstick. This is in the shade Butterscotch. I used this, topped it off with a little bit of the Butter Gloss in Tiramisu, and then I decided to add a little bit of this Wet n Wild. This is the Nudie Patootie. This is, I believe, like a matte liquid lipstick. Yes, it is a matte liquid lipstick, so it'll be drying down here shortly. Maybe not too much just because I have this gloss underneath, but I decided to put this on top of everything just because I feel like this right here goes with the vibe of my shirt. And I like that a lot. And speaking of this shirt, if you guys didn't know, I did do a little DIY tie-dye project. Everybody's been doing tie-dye these days and I wanted to get into the trend and do it for myself. So I did make a top and bottom, which I will show you guys here in a second, but I did make one. So this is the one that I did. I think it came out really nice. I love the color. I used a brown, I forget the exact shade name, but I'll leave it in the description box down below. And all the details will be on my Instagram, so you guys can go check there for that. But overall, I love the makeup look. I feel like it's very spring, at least for me. It's kind of like that neutral everyday spring kind of look that you can just throw on and go if you want a little bit of glam. And I love it. I hope you guys love it as well. Don't forget to like, comment, and don't forget to subscribe, of course. Also, make sure you follow me on my social medias, which are down in the description box as always. I love you guys. Hope you're staying safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.